The hardest knowledge, obviously, is self-knowledge. That's why the ancient Greeks, like Plato, Socrates, the main one, said his main dictum is know thyself. Know thyself. That's the most important thing in life, Socrates said. By the way, he lived about the same time as the Buddha. He said the most important thing is know thyself. And that was inscribed at the Temple of Delphi in ancient Greece. Know thyself. Another strange inscription, and that takes us now to where we are going. On the same temple inscribed was saying that for a long time people couldn't interpret. They thought something was missing. The other words on the temple was, so on the other side of the temple, you are in Greek. You are. And so the archaeologists looked and said, there's something missing here. You are, and they tried, is there another word that you are? But there was no other word. You are. Know thyself. You are. Oh. Then at some point, somebody understood what it probably meant. It was pointing to a deeper dimension of who you are. But the real knowing yourself is not just knowing the personality. That's only one level. It's not the deepest level of knowing yourself. It's important too to know all the stuff that runs you, that operates in you as a conditioning of your mind. This kind of thing people go to a psychoanalyst for. They want to know thyself. What the psychoanalyst or psychiatrist, I don't know, psychoanalyst can do for you is he can show you all kinds of things from your past. And if you go to a psychoanalyst, you can go for many years. Some people go for 20 years, 20, 30 years to a psychoanalyst, once or twice a week. Okay, and the story goes on and discover more and more intricate things about your childhood. And then what happened? And how did you feel about them? And then what did your mother say? And then up to a point it's helpful, but then it goes on. And you get trapped in that level. And it becomes more and more complex. One level of knowing yourself is knowing how your ego operates, being able to witness it. For example, as I mentioned, in an argument, you become emotional and you witness it. Oh, so another faculty is there behind the conditioned mind that can observe what you're doing and say, oh, you're becoming very angry about nothing. So maybe you're shouting, but in the back there's something that has arisen. It's an awareness. It says you're shouting about nothing. You're witnessing what the ego is doing. This means that at the beginning of the end of the ego, the witnessing faculty is the awareness. You are. So if you translate it into you, you'd have to say, I am. Okay. I am. And what am I? So let's investigate now this level of deeper identity. I call it the deep I as opposed to the surface I. The deep I, to find that which is underneath the person. And in order to find that, the stream of thinking that sustains that personal sense of self needs momentarily come to a cessation. And that's why I started this evening with observing your breath, because that can bring about a brief sensation in the stream of thinking. And in that moment, awareness remains. Consciousness remains, but it doesn't become thought. And this is a very strange thing to realize from the egoic point of view. So what, says the ego? It doesn't realize that is of extraordinary importance to find that, to discover that dimension that is deeper than the egoic self, that is a dimension of consciousness before it becomes thought. So the most vital realization for you is to realize that there are spaces in your mind that you just need to discover, or really ultimately only one space. You discover that there is a space in you where you can be conscious without needing to think, but you're very alert. You're completely here. Another word for it, some words can be helpful as pointers. Another word for it is stillness. You discover a dimension of stillness within you. Stillness means consciousness without the movement of thought. Wow. And you can still perceive everything. In fact, you perceive it more acutely, more deeply, when you are not labeling mentally thought, when you are not labeling mentally what you're perceiving. You can look around, flower, room, sky. Everything is there. You know what you're looking at without calling it anything, without concept. And you haven't gone to sleep, because normally humans becoming free of thinking, the only way they can do that when they haven't awakened, they have to go to sleep, or they have to take some kind of drug that slows down your mind. There may be a place for drugs in certain cases, sacred surroundings. Don't need to go there, it takes too long. But the discovery that stillness, which is unconditioned consciousness, which is deeper than the person, is always there, but it's covered up by the noise of the mind. And you are completely identified with this surface movement. So you can't find the deeper self, where there is enormous peace and a deep sense of aliveness that gives you everything that you had been looking for as a surface egoic entity in this realm of this physical realm, or this even psychological realm. You were looking for that, never finding this ultimate sense of being home, having arrived, you feeling at home in the universe, rather than being alienated. Alienation is a very common mental illness for millions of humans, especially modern day humans. So the most important discovery for you is discover there's something deeper in you than the person. They are not separate in the same way that the ripple on the surface of the ocean is not separate from the ocean. The ripple is a surface phenomenon. It's something that the ocean does. And you are something that consciousness, universal, the one universal consciousness that pervades the entire universe, but is transcendent to this universe. It is something that consciousness does. It creates the image of a person, like the ocean produces a ripple or a wave on the surface. And there goes a little ripple, and it has a name. Whatever name you have for you as the ripple, that's me. And the ripple is uneasy because it's surrounded by many, many other ripples, and you never know what they want. Some ripples may be dangerous, they don't want, you may defend yourself, and others you think, if I incorporate this ripple into myself, I become a bigger ripple. I need you. In other words, you fall in love. I'm not talking about real love. I'm talking about falling in love, which is, come, I need you. Don't you dare leave me, though. Yeah. So the ripple leads a very uneasy existence because it doesn't know that it is part of the ocean. You know by now that I'm talking about you as the human. Every human is a ripple on the surface of being, the vastness of being, of consciousness. The pain body then is actually an important part of awakening because that provides the motivation. First, it creates quite a bit of havoc in your life and suffering, and then you reach a point when you know that something needs to change inside, and then you're ready to look at the inside, and that's why people who come perhaps already into this world with very heavy pain bodies, sometimes they are more likely to awaken than those who have very light pain bodies. But even there, it's not a general rule, but it's just a tendency. And it's something to observe. It's a great incentive for awakening. Many of you are here because you have had your pain body, and to some extent may still be suffering from it, but you're beginning to recognize it. And relationships can be, many relationships are destroyed by the pain body because, and then the pain body continues to act when you, in sometimes extremely destructive ways, when you begin divorce proceedings. Divorce proceedings can make some people totally identified with pain body and totally unconscious, and can have just dreadful things that go on for years sometimes. So be very alert in relationships, and be very alert in your mind and in your emotional field. In some people, the pain body can tends to become very active when your normal state of consciousness is lowered for some reason. Even your normal state may not be very high, But in some people, it happens when they drink, because drinking alcohol, some people become happy when they drink alcohol because they begin to fall below thinking, and so they're no longer tortured by their own minds, and they start singing songs and dancing. But not everybody. In other people, it lowers their consciousness so much that their pain body has the pain body that lives in them has now a wonderful opportunity to rise up fully, because the little consciousness that they had before they started drinking is now gone completely, and this is where people become violent when they drink. That's not uncommon that people actually perpetrate acts of violence due to alcoholism. And it is often the case that alcohol lowers your consciousness to such an extent that the pain body has full reign suddenly and will inflict violence on others. The tendency, perhaps it happens more in men than in women, so probably more in the male psyche than in the female psyche, but it could happen also in the female psyche. And so other things are, if you to see something very destructive, a movie that is very violent, to allow the toxicity of a very violent movie into your energy field can also suddenly amplify the pain body, and you have to be really careful with the toxicity of what you allow, what you take in. I'm not saying you can't watch thrillers or movies that are exciting, that's one thing, but movies that indulge in gratuitous violence, this is like eating toxic food on a physical level. You do the same to your mental emotional field when you watch those things, and thus those things can also trigger the pain body. Children, you may, if you have children or have brought up children, children have pain bodies too already. I just mentioned babies already seem to seem more unhappy than others. But most children have some form of pain body, and it can manifest, for example, as a temper tantrum, that the child suddenly becomes like a totally berserk, they can throw themselves on the floor, or start screaming, or others go into complete and total withdrawal. They just go. So that's it. Really, these teachings should start in childhood. If you're a parent and you observe your child going periodically through pain body episodes, it's important that you talk to the child, not while it's happening. You can't talk to the pain body, but when the child has come back, I always recommend that you talk to the child and say, what happened yesterday when you threw yourself on the floor, or when you didn't want to talk to anybody and you went off into a corner sulking for an hour? What happened? What happened to you? And then perhaps by beginning to talk about it, the child can develop some awareness around it. And then when it happens again, you say again, oh, the same thing happened to you again, didn't it? Yeah, what was that? What did it feel like when it happened? And then maybe the child starts talking a little bit about it. Perhaps even encourage the child to draw a picture of what is this thing that sometimes comes up in you, and what is this? What color is it? Or what would it look like if it? And sometimes the child draws something like a fire in your belly or whatever, or some little ugly monster or something like that. And you might even encourage the child to give it a name so that it's an awareness. So, and once the child has chosen a name, then next time it happens, just when it starts to happen, then you can say, oh, there is so-and-so, he or she is back now, isn't he? Then that brings about, child remains to be aware, even then while it happens. So after you've spoken it, after perhaps you named it, so the child names it, then when it happens, you can point it out, oh, it's there again. So you never say, don't do that. No, that doesn't work, obviously. So you never ask a child to suppress it or anything, but to become more conscious. So they become more conscious of it. And that's to deal with emotions like that is so important in childhood, because a child can really suffer from very destructive emotions, and adolescents even more so when they become adolescents, teenagers, can have very destructive emotions. So to learn to be aware of their own emotional energy field so that they're not completely taken over by it, it's vital for a child to learn. This should be the subject number one at every school. But I don't know what else they teach. It's not... So if you are a teacher, then please, you may not be able to officially incorporate these teachings into the school curriculum, but unofficially you can perhaps help children in that way. I can't tell you exactly how, but you will know how you can help children to become more aware of their emotional field, become more aware of what thinking they do. All these things, the greatest thing, the most important thing to develop as a child is awareness. So much more important than anything like accumulating knowledge or even IQ. IQ is a very small aspect of intelligence, and it does not guarantee awareness whatsoever. When things go wrong, little things like last Sunday, or bigger things, it's always a good test for your degree of presence. So it gives you a reflection of how present you are or how non-present you are when something goes wrong. So you can look back, it might be the case with you, maybe not. If you look back to last Sunday, was there a reaction of whatever kind against what is? And what is was that Eckhart wasn't there. He didn't make it. Well, I was here, but didn't reach many of you, so Eckhart didn't make it to our appointed
meeting. What was your mind saying? What did you verbally say? Comments to people around you? Or what did your mind comment about it? That's an interesting thing to look at. And accompanying the mental commentary, what was the emotion that went with it? And some of you, I'm sure, were already so present that there was no sense of upset, disappointment, anger, irritation, some kind of mental complaint. And perhaps there was just perhaps some of you just went into meditation, just became present and realized you don't need Eckhart to be present. Oh, wonderful. But if there was a reaction, then it's very useful retrospectively. Usually I don't like, as you know, don't like to go to the past, but from time to time can be helpful to look at a past reaction in which perhaps where you lost consciousness, you lost presence. And you don't beat yourself up. No, you just say, oh, that's interesting. There was the mind talking, and there was an emotion going with it. And I was completely that. I became that. It took me over. So whenever something goes wrong, big or small, you either react against it in one way or another. In other words, you are against what is, ultimately a dysfunctional state, which in extreme forms becomes insanity. Normal insanity, I mean. So the reaction against what is, or complete alignment with what is. And there you are. That means whenever something goes wrong, you either react or you go deeper into presence, deeper into yourself. You can notice that with little things. When little things go wrong, you go a little bit deeper to a place where you don't need the external to be this way or that way, because you already sense the fullness of life at this moment. You already sense yourself as consciousness, and nothing needs to be added to that. So sometimes it's only when things go wrong, quite often, it's only then, for many people who are not yet able to voluntarily enter presence, only then the possibility of going deeper opens up for them, or they become reactive. So another example, you're standing at a street corner, waiting to meet somebody for an appointment, and he or she doesn't turn up. So you stand there 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. What happens during that time inside you, in your mind, and what is your mind saying about it? And then, of course, the emotions that go usually are a reflection of what the mind is saying about it. It's an interesting thing to look at. What is it that your mind is commenting? And are you totally identified with what your mind is saying? Or do you realize, oh, these are just judgments that are coming up? And there's the possibility, the opportunity for letting go of all interpretations at that moment as you're standing there at the street corner, the person isn't turning up, letting go of all interpretations and just be there as the field of presence. So to do that, you go deeper within, where whatever happens on the surface of life doesn't determine any longer your state of consciousness, your happiness or unhappiness. And it's a wonderful sense of freedom. If you can be free of externals. And then at some point you call the person and say, where are you, or where were you? And then there may be a perfectly reasonable explanation why he or she couldn't come, or in which case all your mental commentaries, which were perhaps negative, are revealed as totally invalid, totally inaccurate. It was a total misinterpretation. That's possible. Or it could be that your mental commentaries were justified and that person says, oh, I completely forgot, I was doing something else. What's the reaction then in you? Am I of so little importance to this person that he or she forgot about our appointment? That's an interesting thought. And that thought can lead to many other thoughts. On a purely practical level, of course, if it happens several times and this person doesn't turn up, then you simply don't arrange to meet with this person anymore. And can you do this without any negativity around it? That's just what is. A very powerful state to immediately be with what is. That's what is. Instead of mentally saying it shouldn't be, or strengthen your ego by complaining about it. It's just the same as saying it shouldn't be. Because the more you can complain about somebody or something, the stronger the inflated ego becomes. Huffing and puffing, I call that. So the more you can huff and puff about people and what they do, or this person and that, the ego feels bigger and bigger. It's like a balloon. The more you huff and puff, the bigger you get. Can you live without huffing and puffing? Any complaining about others, what they do, what they fail to do, huffing and puffing. If you make a commentary in order to point something out so that something practical can be done about it, is a different matter. But huffing and puffing is not like that at all. It has nothing to do with changing the situation. What it changes is the way in which you deal with the situation, which becomes dysfunctional. So you can tell a person's presence by observing another person. If that person never complains about anybody, that's a good sign. Presence doesn't complain about anybody. It's still relatively rare that you meet people like that. But perhaps you're already on your way, or perhaps you're already at that state where you have relinquished all that futility of complaining about other people. An enormous step forward. So let's welcome the many ways in which things can go wrong in your life. Not wrong means, of course, with quotation marks, go wrong. Doesn't go wrong, it's the mental interpretation says it's going wrong. But we're using that conventional label, things going wrong, to point to something very important. Expectations are not being met. You're not getting what you want. Something happens that shouldn't be happening. Or something fails to happen that should be happening, like last Sunday. As you know, there are always two levels to this. I'm speaking and pointing out something that is helpful in your daily life. At the same time, there is an underlying presence here. So that's why we call it meditation. It's not a conventional meditation. But as I speak about becoming aware of a certain type of dysfunction, at the same time there's a presence there. So it works on two levels here. And that's also why the pauses are important. When there are no words. So that next time there is something goes wrong, little or small, little or big, there's either already such presence that the reaction doesn't even arise, or there's a reaction and then there is the recognition immediately after, a second after, or a minute after, there's the recognition that there is a reaction, and there's a recognition that the mind is creating its story around the simplicity of what is. And there's the recognition that you don't need it, you're better off without it, you're more effective in what you do when you're free of that. So there's a choice of then being present instead of reactive. And then the reaction subsides and presence takes its place, arises, the reaction goes. And then that's an enormous thing when you suddenly realize in the very same situation, a minute ago you were upset and reactive and then recognized it. The recognition comes, of course, from heightened presence, and then you became the presence instead of the reaction. And then the reaction crumbles. And then in the very same situation, in that minute later, you're free of upset and you feel empowered. It means externals no longer control you. So, as I said, let's be grateful for all those occasions when things go wrong. There's always an opportunity for going deeper. And if it's something big that goes wrong, something truly huge, something big crumbles in your life, then you'll have to go even deeper, so the depth increases. When you just let go of a little upset, you go a little bit deeper. But when something big happens, some big loss in your life, then you have to go even deeper. It's always miraculous to suddenly discover that you can be free of externals. As far as your inner state is concerned.
You know, when I was a little girl, I don't know what it is I mean, I do notice this in most Asian people, that if they're not smiling, they just look sad. So when I was a kid, you know, and if I wasn't smiling, they always say, "Why do you look so sad?" And I'm like, I don't think I'm sad. You know, smile. Smile. You got such a pretty smile. Smile. So I learned to, hi. Even when I'm really sad, I'll go, hi. Oh, yeah, I'm fine. You know, we take on these roles because people may have said something. I mean, I did it. And then when I take on that role, I actually lose that authentic self of me that, okay, I might be this person that, just looks sad, but I'm not sad. I mean, I was trying to please somebody else, make somebody else comfortable. Because they told me that it wasn't nice. They weren't feeling good because I looked the way that I looked, which it appeared to them in their mind and interpretation that I was sad. So I learned to keep smiling. It's easy to do, but it can be very exhausting if you hang around with a bunch of people all the time, because I think I have to be like this. That's why I don't hang around with anybody. No. I mean, wow, we just got to be ourselves. And, somebody told me I was in a body worker in California, and we often just share and we talk, because we really love talking with each other. And she told me this story, this man who used to come to her. He was a very old gentleman, and seeing that he was old, she asked him, wow, you've lived so many years. What great wisdom can you share with me? And he said, don't believe in what anybody says. So it's not only don't believe what they say, don't believe what your own mind says. And don't believe the mask they wear. You'll know something when it's just genuine, because something in your body just melts. You just feel it. And when that melts, because they're melted and then you melt, you go, oh, wow, this is nice. It's not like this great excitement that happens. It's just a nice feeling. It's kind of like, oh, okay, this is nice. This is comfortable. So in on my retreats that I do, sometimes I'll do an experiment with the group, and it's a smaller group than this. So we can do a lot more experiments and stuff, exercises. But I will have them talk to each other. Just, somebody that they don't know, go up to them and just have a conversation with them. Right away, it'll start off, and that gets louder and louder and louder and louder. And you just know that vibration of that energy is coming strictly from the mind. That's how they're meeting each other and communicating, is through the mind. And then I'll go, okay, let's stop. Before you talk, I want you to go into your body. Feel your body. And then if you can access stillness, go into stillness. So feel your body and then speak from there. So it's quiet for a moment because they feel their body. And then suddenly they speak. And there's a level there. It doesn't rise. It's not like before, where it was just like so loud. It can get so loud. And they're speaking from a different place. And I love I did a retreat a couple of weeks ago at Hollyhock. And then I had, the person share, what was different for them. And they said, I just felt like as if I was raw. Because they were just being them. They're themselves. And we are raw. We're vulnerable. And it was wonderful for her, and at the same time, it was very strange because it's unfamiliar. We've forgotten that familiarity of how vulnerable and how raw and how open and how exposed we can be because we're so used to hiding ourselves, protecting ourselves. And this has become our habit. Is the protection of ourselves. But who are we really protecting? We're protecting that ego identity, because what is there to protect of your soul, of consciousness? Nothing. Because that soul, that consciousness, is that open space, or that all-consuming love, the love that has no opposites, or the peace that passes all understanding. It's who we are really in reality. The other thing that comes and goes, the body, the mind, the ego, that's all illusion. It's all impermanent. It's not who we are. But when we attach ourselves to that and only live from that place, you're living out of your shadow self. You've covered that light that you are here because it went whew. And this is where then you talk, you act, and you think you're being yourself, but you're not. And what I've observed, most human beings are not themselves. It does take a vulnerability, a willingness to be vulnerable, a willingness to be exposed, a willingness to be raw and open, just to be this. But every time that you believe that you are this, then it's like you become sensitive to that and think, oh, I might get hurt, so it's easier to cover myself. Yeah, you might get hurt. Yeah, humans hurt each other. I mean, just look at last half of the century. I mean, we hurt each other all the time. But when you know that you are the consciousness, that's why I was saying, ultimately, there is no one to forgive, because when you know that you are consciousness, the other is consciousness too, and that is just the ego, the illusion of it. So that's why there's no one to forgive. But most of us, you're not in that place. So when you're not in that place, you kind of need to merge these two places together and have that, your ego, your mind, to understand that, to tell the truth. And when you live in that truth, it does open up that space there. Because there is this too. Just because it's an illusion doesn't mean that it's not there, because it is there. It's like that, I don't know, there was some sort of Zen story where the student would say, well, if our body is an illusion, then, why bother, with it? Or I don't know, I can't even remember, but then the master just hits him with a stick. And he goes, ow! And the master goes, well, if you said your body's an illusion, why does it hurt? So we do feel. Why separate ourselves from that? Because when we are in the very essence of your soul, and you know that the consciousness is, you are that consciousness, then you're more mindful, because you know how sensitive this body is, how sensitive the mind is, and how just vulnerable it can be. So we just kind of hold that. We hold ourselves in that without that attachment, because we know that there is this body here. And then we speak from a different place. We don't just go right into the mind and start talking. So that's your homework during lunch, is to, before you speak, go into your body. Enjoy.
The Sufis are right, of course, when they say that ultimately every desire is really a disguised desire for God. It's a disguised desire for ultimate satisfaction and fulfillment and being fully and truly, completely who you are. And basically, we're talking about the source, realizing the source of all life. And everyone is longing for that, but in most humans still, the longing for what I sometimes call the return journey to where you came from, the source of all life, but never really left the source, of course. It's not really a journey, but it's words. There's a longing to return to the very source of life. And it's really only then, when you have discovered it, found it consciously, then there's a completion there of life. That's what the universe wanted. It wants two things. If you observe yourself, you know that this is true, and you are the universe. So you can learn a lot about the universe by observing yourself, because you are it, and it is you, and as above, so below. The tendency or the desire to create. The human being has the desire to create in the world of form, to bring things, to give birth to whatever it may be. It may be a material thing, it may be something else. But there's a desire in humans to participate in the act of creation, which, of course, the act of creation is there even without humans. There are millions of life forms on this planet alone come into being every moment. Millions of life forms of different kinds, it staggers the imagination how many different life forms come on this planet alone are being created every moment. And of course die at the same time, the continuous birth, death, continuously. Humans too, humans are being created every moment. I can say a human being is being born now, somewhere on the planet. And a human being is dying a little bit slower now. But it's at this moment, somebody is dying on the planet. And again. And again. And again. And being born. So there's the act of creation that the universe is engaged in, And creation is increasing in complexity. If you look at our planet alone, you see that there was a time when it was barren, there was only minerals. Then came plant life, and then other levels of life, increasing complexity. Like a tree, first there's only one branch, the stem, one branch, and then a lot more smaller branches coming out of that. So it grows, and it goes into complexity. And even human life forms, if you go back in human history, human society and the human being was relatively simple thousands of years ago, even a few hundred years ago compared to now. There's much less complexity in people's personal lives, what they had to deal with, and the collective. So there's the universe then is growing in complexity and is indulging in or wanting or delighting perhaps in the act of creation, because otherwise it wouldn't be happening. It is a desire of the universe to create, and that's what it does. And that is reflected in humans. We participate in this wanting to give birth. So the act of creation can happen to the human. The human can create, and that's, in that sense, we are different from animals, because we can create all kinds of things that are totally new. We can create music, science, and many, many other things. Art, philosophies, pictures, movies, organizations, Wall Street, all kinds of things. And you can probably find in yourself that there's part of you that would like to do and participate in the act of creation and bring something into this world that wasn't here before, in the world of form. Maybe it's a book you want to write, or a piece of music, or you want to create an enlightened organization that changes things in the world, or whatever, you want to help people who are suffering. You create a structure that is helpful, but you create something. There's that desire to, or in some people it is more fundamental. It's a desire to acquire something. Some people who are very much in the egoic consciousness don't see it so much as giving out into this, giving from your treasure and then create something. You must, to some extent, have already gotten beyond ego. The creation comes through the fullness that you sense inside you, and from there you can truly create. This is really presence. In the egoic consciousness, they're also very interested in the world of form, but the egoic consciousness is not so much, doesn't come from the wanting to give, but wanting to have. So the ego goes, what can I get? And from presence, when you participate in the creation, it's more, what can I give birth to? That's the difference. So there is the egoic aspect of increasing complexity in the world of form and life forms. The egoic part is wanting something. So the ego comes not from fullness, but from neediness, from a sense of not enough. And so it says, where can I get? And that is the ego desire. The ego says, I desire that car because I will really feel better when I'm sitting in that car and driving it, especially if other people see me in it. Without other people, it doesn't really work, because it's only, it's comfortable for the ego. It's a comfortable ride, But that's not such a big thing. It only begins to work for the ego if other people have cars that are not like mine, then it works. The same with the house or whatever you acquire, any possession. You can perfectly enjoy a nice house or a nice car without the ego deriving any pleasure from it or enhancing itself. I'm not saying things cannot be enjoyed. If you have no ego, you can still enjoy lovely things, but not because they add to your sense of self. It's a simple enjoyment of a beautiful thing that perhaps a human has created. A beautiful piece of furniture, could be a house. You enjoy that house. You would probably not want to acquire a 20-bedroom house for yourself when you're not coming from ego. It's unlikely that presence would say, I'd love a 20-bedroom house. We have, so there's both the egoic aspect of wanting to not so much the ego, not so much create, but have, but it's the world of form, and the non-egoic desire of the universe to give birth to more forms and experience more forms. So the universe does it without the humans, but an added dimension comes in when the universe or the greater intelligence or consciousness creates through the humans something, a completely new level of creation comes in. And this is why we have the expression, we become co-creators with God.